Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm Al.
And I'm Boomer, for some reason. I had to say it a little differently than I normally do.
Well, at least you came up with something besides just going, "It's Boomer!"
It's Boomer. For some reason.
Oh no, Boomer. But now that we're done joking around, I wanted to show everybody the thumbnail that It's Game Tech made for this video. As you can see right here, this is the thumbnail for chapters 10 through 12. I would have put the thumbnails in the previous videos at the beginning, but when he made the thumbnails, I had the videos all recorded, and I just had to edit them still, but it was a little bit late to put the new thumbnails in the videos like I wish I could have done back when we recorded chapters 7 through 9 and 4 through 6, you know?
Yep. But at least today, we can show everybody the thumbnail in the video. For some reason. Boomer.
But with that out of the way, I think I'm ready to get started on chapter 10. Today we're doing chapters 10 through 12. I think I said that already, but I think I'm ready to get started.
Sounds good to me, Al.
Okay, here is chapter 10. Martin stayed home after the ambulance left. While waiting for his father, he kicked random pebbles around in the driveway, but was surprised to see the paranormal investigator's van barreling down the road from the direction of the bar. The red-headed woman who was driving squealed the tires and flung gravel everywhere as she cranked the wheel before pulling up beside the mailbox. Hurrying over to the driver's side window, Martin waved to them, causing the woman to roll down the glass pane. Panting hard, Martin said, "My sister had a seizure. She might have one of those germs in her head, but we don't know." Her face looked grim. "If that's true, then it means Ricky Stonehenge is inside her head too. He isn't in the pond anymore." "What do we do?" Martin screamed, now on the verge of tears. "I can't lose my sister." "We're probably going to have to do an exorcism on her in the hospital," the woman told him. "I'm Evie, by the way. Are you home alone?" Martin nodded. "Yes, I'm waiting for my dad. My name's Martin." Evie furrowed her eyebrows, causing Martin to defend his father. "He knows you're right about everything now. He knows all about Ricky Stonehenge." Staring hard into the kid's eyes, she said, "We can wait for him if that's all right." Martin nodded and cussed. "I think it will be, but how are you supposed to do an exorcism in the hospital?" Evie raised her eyebrows. "It won't be easy, but we've done it before. We just have to avoid security throwing us out is all." "Is there any way I can help?" Evie shook her head at Martin. "No, I'm afraid not." Now we're on to the next packet of papers. Glancing back towards the nasty pond out back, Martin asked, "Can't you do something to the pond to get rid of this thing? Is my sister possessed now?" Evie pursed her lips thoughtfully, but then she nodded her head. "Oppressed is more like it." Tears flooded Martin's eyes as his terrified brain conjured up images of a sister in a coma and dying at the hospital. As soon as Evie noticed the look on his face, her eyes began to glisten behind her glasses too. Martin put a hand over his eyes and stepped away so he could lean on the hood of the van with one hand, causing Evie to get out. "I can't lose my sister. If I had stayed in the backyard, I could have gotten to her in time." The other three investigators got out of the van too, just as Evie put a hand on his shoulder. "Don't blame yourself for this, Martin. Just be glad you were there to help at all, because the last family wasn't so lucky." Wiping tears from his eyes, Martin turned around and hugged Evie. His shoulders trembled under the t-shirt he was wearing, so she hugged him back. Okay. Before I continue on with the rest of Chapter 10, I wanted to say something really quick. I made more changes to the story after recording Chapter 10, so I'm going to go ahead and redo the recording for a big section from the second and third pages of Chapter 10. Once I get to the point where the changes have all been recorded, then I'll just continue on with the previous audio recording that I used before.
Wow, Al, you've been making a lot of work for yourself here. Making changes to the document and then redoing the recordings.
Oh yeah, but I just wanted to get that out of the way and say what I'm going to do, and then I'm going to go ahead and redo the recording. So, here we go. The rest of her crew felt bad for the kid too, but they all knew they could save his sister from the demon that was in his pond. After getting a hug from Evie, he calmed down a little, so the one named Tyler started up a conversation after introducing himself to Martin. "What was your old house like? Better than this one, I hope." Martin actually laughed a little, and then he wiped more tears away from his eyes. Annie always loved the butterflies on the wallpaper over there. It felt like home. This place just has cracked wallpaper with old berries and some weird flowers on it. The one named Steve laughed at Martin's wording and introduced himself as well, before saying,
"Weird flowers and berries, huh? Well, once we get done with this, and your dad fills the pond with dirt, he can get some of the old wallpaper. I know where I can get a discount on it."
"A discount?" Martin asked. "Sounds nice, but I don't think he's going to fill in the pond. I mean, he only bought this place because my grandpa has a pond, but that one is much more clear and beautiful in the summer. It gets algae sometimes, but it's filled with fish and turtles, and there's a wild goose that hangs out there." "Sounds like a nice place," said the last investigator with a smile. "I'm Keisha, by the way, but I think this nasty old pond ain't worth saving, if you ask me. Maybe it was when Stonehenge still lived here, but he ruined everything." Martin agreed with that. "Tell me about it. He just about ruined my family. Or the demon pretending to be him, if that's what it is." "We're not 100% sure what we're up against," Evie explained. "We just have a fairly good idea of what to expect." For several minutes, the paranormal investigators kept Martin company until the red car Albert always drove came flying up the road and turned into the driveway, flinging gravel. Albert came to a stop behind the van and rolled down his window. "Martin, get in!" Martin hurried over and got in the car, just as Steve walked over to the window.
"You know we're here to help now, right?"
Albert nodded. "Yeah, thanks for keeping my boy company. You guys can follow me."
"Okay, everybody, let's go!"
Steve turned and ran back to the van, just as his three investigator buddies all got back in. Following Albert to the hospital, they parked both vehicles and hurried inside through the main entrance, where they were told that Annie was still in the ER, but was about to be sent to the ICU. As it turned out, she really was dealing with a nasty brain infection, but the investigators had a feeling the treatments wouldn't work so well if a demon was involved. The nurse at the front desk asked them to have a seat while they waited to hear back from the ER doctor. Albert plopped down in a chair between Steve and Evie, where he grabbed a magazine off the small table between the chairs. Flipping through the pages, he got tired of looking at the faces of smiling celebrities and set the magazine back where he found it. But as for Martin, he wandered off down the hall to clear his head. Steve glanced down at the table and back up at Albert, meeting his gaze.
Not much worth reading, huh?
Albert shook his head. Nope.
I'm sorry this is happening to you guys, Steve said. Believe me, I am.
Albert gave him a faint smile. I know. Thanks. Besides, it's my fault for not listening to people when they said the pond might be haunted. All I wanted was a pond like my dad has, but instead all I got was this.
What brought you and your family way out here in the first place? Steve asked curiously. Was it just the house or work?
Albert scoffed at himself. Work mainly, but I got a good deal on the house. It was much cheaper than all the other ones I looked at. Evie chuckled a little. But still overpriced, I bet. This caused Albert to glance at her and smile. It still cost me an arm and a leg. You know, I had an experience once when I was 18 that should have opened my eyes, but I was in denial after all these years. Now Keisha was curious, so she leaned forward so she could talk past Evie. In denial about what? What did you see? Albert laughed nervously. Most people wouldn't believe it, but after my mom died, my dad took me, my sister Sarah, and my brother Rob out for a camping trip in the mountains. We all saw these massive wolves that could stand on 2 feet and walk like people. Now it was Tyler's turn to be freaked out. Looking past Steve, he said, Holy crap! You're talking about a dog man! Is that what people call it? Albert asked, now looking scared again. You know, it doesn't matter now. Seeing has always been believing for me, but yet when I saw, I didn't believe. I just figured this man in the pond crap was just that. Crap. But I thought the same thing when the guy at the trinket shop warned my dad about skinwalkers. Hearing about that gave everyone a chill, but Albert's shudder was the most violent. No longer wanting to talk about it, they instead focused on praying for Annie and hoping that they weren't too late to save her. And that was the end of chapter 10.
That was crazy, Al. How Albert opened up about his dogman encounter. He didn't go into any detail, though.
No details yet, but in the future I want to write a prequel story for this called Albert's Dogman Encounter. And it's going to go into all the details about what he, his sister, his brother, and his dad actually saw. I just got to figure out how the story's going to go because I got it started a little bit, but I didn't make very much progress into it.
Okay, Al. So it's another story that you've been working on. You just need to get more progress made.
Yeah. I think I'm going to work on it after I get done writing Chessmaster, which is the 4th book in this series. I'm not sure what to call the series right now, but it's Game Tech and I are going to come up with a new name. So once we come up with a new name for the series, then we can say Chessmaster is a part of the same series as Man in the Pond and the 2nd book, Twist.
Anyway, Al, now that we're done with chapter 10, it's time to end the recording here.
Oh yeah. Then we can start on chapter 11. Okay, welcome to another recording. This is going to be chapter 11 of Man in the Pond.
Odie!
Boomer! Well, there's some scary stuff that happens in this chapter, so let's get going. On the way to the hospital, Annie remembered bits and pieces. She remembered the paramedics taking her outside, being on the ambulance a few minutes with her mom by her side, and seeing the staff at the ER rushing her in. After blacking out one last time before being put into a medically induced coma, Annie sat up and found herself laying on the carpeted floor of her bedroom at her family's original house, clad in irregular clothes instead of a hospital gown. "Oh no," she groaned when she realized the nightmare had resumed and the lady was gone. "No." Walking over to the door, she pulled it open and saw the red butterflies on the wallpaper in the hallway. Taking a step out into the more friendly-looking corridor of this house, she was up on the second floor, hearing the familiar creaks and squeaks of the floorboards under the soft, gray carpet. The groans of the new house often sounded angry and unwelcoming to her, which is another reason why Annie hated it so much. Walking over to the stairs, the hallway came to an end at the top of the stairwell. But before she could step down, she felt a chill go down her spine when she heard a footstep behind her. Slowly turning around, she spotted Ricky Stonehenge standing in the doorway of her room with an evil grin on his face. "Welcome back," the demon said coldly as the red butterflies on the wallpaper started turning black, one butterfly at a time. "No!" Annie cried as she whirled around and bolted down the stairs. "Carol! Carol!" Slowly walking after her, the creep mocked her. "Carol! Carol!"
She ain't coming to save you this time, kid. I've got her under my control now.
Once Annie made it to the living room, she frantically looked around for a place to hide. The furniture that had been moved to the haunted house was still in the places Annie remembered, and she saw the sofa and recliners against one wall by the window, with the curtains behind them, and there was a closet in the corner and a TV against the wall across from the sofa. Crawling between the wall and sofa, where there was just enough of a gap for her to fit, she squeezed into it, just as the man reached the bottom of the stairs.
My name's Ricky, but I guess you've heard of me. I'm not in a hurry, but I'll find you sooner or later.
Walking over to the wall where the TV was, he spotted a small table with a family photo on it. Going over to it, he picked it up and smiled.
Aw, you guys have such a cute little family. It's just too bad you're gonna forget all about them when my little germ gets done eating your brain.
Annie gasped when she heard that, causing Ricky to glance over at the couch with a smirk. "No." Walking over, he grabbed the cushions off and tossed them aside. Come out, wherever you are!" Crawling out from behind the couch, just as Ricky knelt on the area where the cushions once were and looked down by the wall, she managed to escape. Unfortunately for Annie, he laughed when he saw her run past him out of the corner of his eye. Running into the kitchen, Annie found more family photos of her parents from when her brother was a baby and when she was a baby. To her horror, she watched as the faces of her parents and brother vanished, along with her own baby face. The red butterflies on the house's wallpaper continued to turn black, and before she knew it, the peeling, cracked paper on the walls started to look like the wallpaper at the house with the haunted pond. "What's happening?" Annie cried. Grabbing her shoulders from behind, Ricky spun her around and growled, "Gotcha!" Screaming in terror, Annie struggled against him, just as he inhaled deeply and started to pull the soul out of her body. As her vision started to blur, a pair of pounding footsteps came barreling out of the living room. It was Carol in her black trench coat and steel-toe boots. "Hey!" Carol cried, causing Ricky to glance back just as she smashed the family photo from the living room on the side of his head, sending shards of glass everywhere. "Let her go!" Gah! Ricky fell to his hands and knees, allowing Carol to take the girl by the hand and quickly lead her out of the house. Getting up on his knees, he laughed and screamed after her, "You can't keep running forever! I'll get both of you very soon!" The moment they burst out the front door of the house, Annie glanced back over her shoulder. "He's coming!" Sure enough, Ricky had stumbled out to the doorway with a hand on the side of his head, and he was grinning once again. "Don't look back, honey," Carol told her. "Get to the bus." Looking ahead, Annie saw that there was an empty school bus waiting for them at the end of the driveway. The engine was running, and the moment they climbed the steps, Carol plopped down into the driver's seat and shut the door. Taking a seat behind her rescuer, Annie folded her arms over her chest and started to cry. "Why is this happening to me? Why can't I remember my brother's name? Why can't I remember my mommy and daddy's faces anymore?" Grabbing the gear shift and pulling away, the ghost that saved Annie put the pedal to the metal. "Do you remember your favorite teacher? Miss Woodman? How about Joe Brown? She used to drive this bus and gave you cookies on Halloween." Annie nodded and sniffled. "Yes, I still remember them." "Good," Carol said. "Just hang in there, and we'll find more places to hide. Stonehenge won't get his grubby mitts on you without tearing through me first." Realizing she was in safe hands for the moment, Annie tried to calm herself, but she was still afraid that this strange woman might not be strong enough to keep her safe. She talked big, but Ricky was a big, bad monster who was devouring her mind, one memory at a time. All right. That was the end of Chapter 11. It wasn't very long, and we got through it pretty quick. Oh yeah, but Chapter 11 is crazy, Al! What's going on between Ricky Stonehenge and Carol Wright? It's awesome, but it's still scary. Oh yeah, it is. Definitely still scary, because Ricky Stonehenge is still on the move. Anyway, I think we can record Chapter 12 another day. Right now it's Saturday, February 7th. I wanted to get through Chapters 10 and 11, but I have to work tonight on Saturday. So I'm going to have to record Chapter 12 another time, possibly tomorrow when Sunday gets here. That'll be good, Al. It'll be good if you can get some rest before you're going to work. Yeah, I got quite a lot of sleep last night and this morning, so I'm probably fine, but I still want to get one more nap in before I go into work. Sounds good, Al. We can record Chapter 12 later. Oh yeah, I'm going to end the recording here. Okay, Boomer, I think I'm ready to record Chapter 12 now. It's currently Wednesday, so we're cutting it kind of close. Oh yeah, we are, Al. But I got the document open up on the computer, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Sounds good to me, Al. So here is Chapter 12. Martin was sitting in a chair outside his sister's room at the ICU. His mom sat in another folding chair beside him, while Albert was outside, waiting for his brother and sister to get there. "Mom?" Martin said, breaking the silence. She glanced at him with her eyes glistening from the ceiling lights. Has Dad heard from Aunt Sarah or Uncle Rob yet? They should be here soon, right? His mom nodded. Your Aunt Sarah was about half an hour away last time they talked, but I don't know about Uncle Rob. Martin let out a sigh and hung his head while he rested his elbows on his knees with his hands clasped together. It seems like we've been here forever. Lisa put a hand on her son's shoulder. I know it does. I wish I could work miracles and help your sister heal, but it's in the doctor's hands now. Martin gave his mother a faint smile. You think those paranormal guys will be able to do an exorcism in here? Lisa shook her head. No, probably not. Besides, like the doctor said, it's an amoeba. The nurse said they're giving her a mix of drugs that should help. I think one of them is an antifungal drug. I don't know what it does, but... Her speech became less and less understandable as she spoke, her chin and lip trembling with every pause. Martin watched as his mom put a hand over her eyes and burst into tears. Putting a hand on his mom's shoulder this time, Martin tried to be reassuring. The doctor said they diagnosed it early, so she's probably going to be fine. Wiping tears away from her eyes, Lisa smiled at her son. I know, but I'm still worried. I know Dad's even more messed up, Martin said after pulling his hand away. It reminds him of Grandma, doesn't it? Lisa nodded and her smile faded. I'm sorry you never got to meet her, but your grandpa was devastated when she died. The cancer, it was untreatable. What was Grandma like? Martin asked. Lisa grinned as she remembered hearing about her. Your father told me all kinds of things about her. She had this beautiful, dark brown hair, kind of like your sister and I have, but all her kids turned out to be blondes like your grandpa. Martin chuckled. I saw a picture, so I kind of already knew that. Lisa laughed. She loved everyone she met, and never said anything bad about anyone. Your father told me that one of the speeches at her funeral was about how you'd have to be Hitler before she'd say something bad about you. A slight exaggeration, maybe, but it tells me a lot about how good of a person she was. She sounds wonderful, Martin said. Do you believe we might see her again someday? I know Dad and Uncle Rob are skeptical about God and all that, but maybe. I don't know, Lisa said, giving a slight shrug. I just hope your Grandpa and Uncle Rob make it here okay. Martin nodded. Me too. But most of all, I want Annie to be okay. Sometimes I wish I was the one in that hospital bed instead of her. Martin! Lisa cried, now looking even more worried than before. Why would you say that? You know what happened wasn't your fault. We all forgot she was playing by the tree, so it could have happened to anyone. I know, Mom, I know, Martin said. I want her to wake up and be okay. I don't know what to do if... Hugging her son, Lisa reassured him once again. We don't have to worry about that. You said it yourself, remember? The doctors diagnosed it early, so she should be fine. Then, to their surprise, Martin's grandpa came walking around to the corner, looking both sad about what was going on, but also happy that he got to see his grandson and daughter-in-law. I got here as soon as I could, he said, causing Lisa to glance up at him. Paul, you made it! Lisa cried before getting up to hug him. He hugged her back and laughed a little, despite the sadness in his voice. I don't live as far away as Rob or Sarah, so it helped. Then he hugged Martin. Hey, Martin. Martin hugged him back and forced a smile. Grandpa, I'm glad you made it. Me too, Martin. Me too. After hugging his grandfather, Martin watched him go inside to see his granddaughter. Seeing her condition caused Paul to tear up, and a sob soon escaped past his lips. Hearing it made Martin feel like crying, but he swallowed hard and did his best to keep his own emotions in check. Eventually, Paul left the room and decided to take a walk around the hallways, looking for a vending machine to get a snack from. Lisa went with him, and Martin sat down on his chair while he waited for his Aunt Sarah to arrive. The time seemed to drag on quite slowly, but when he finally heard the sound of her shoes thumping against the floor tiles in the hallway, he looked up. Hey, Aunt Sarah, he said, without much enthusiasm in his voice. He was surprised to see that she was wearing a coat, despite the warmer weather, but she noticed him looking at it. Hey, Martin, it got a bit chilly out this evening. I heard we might even see some frost later tonight. Getting up from the chair, Martin put his hands in his pockets. It's a bit late in the year for frost, isn't it? Sarah shrugged. I suppose so, but sometimes it happens. What can we do? Martin sighed and shook his head. Nothing, really. Just like there isn't much we can do for Annie. Look, Sarah said, grabbing his attention. My brothers might not be the praying type, but it can't hurt to give it a shot. It might help you feel better at the very least. Martin scoffed, surprising her. A lot of good that did. I already tried it. I'm starting to think my dad and Uncle Rob are right. I don't think they are, Sarah told him. I know a lot of terrible things happen in our world, but there's some good in it too. I don't know if your dad ever told you about our Dogman story or not. Martin furrowed his eyebrows, looking confused. Dogman story? Sarah chuckled. Guess he didn't. Figures. I'll tell you about it when things calm down, if that's okay. Yeah, that's okay, Martin said, feeling quite curious to hear the details of what his aunt and his dad saw. Putting a hand on his shoulder, Sarah told him, Or you should get your dad to tell you the story someday. You should hear it in his own words, as well as his excuse for not telling you about the dog man. Martin smiled. Maybe he just didn't want to scare me or Annie. Maybe, Sarah said, glancing towards the room where the poor girl was in a coma, still hooked up to the machines that were keeping her alive. I'm going to go see Annie for a bit, and then I'm going to meet up with my dad. He went for a walk with my mom, Martin explained. He was hungry, so they're looking for snacks or something. Sarah raised her eyebrows in surprise. I could use something to eat too. Maybe we'll go get something after I see your sister. Plopping back down onto his chair, Martin watched his Aunt Sarah go into the room, where she grabbed a chair for herself to sit down on and said a few words to Annie. It was unclear if his little sister could hear them or not, but Martin hoped that she could.